George Randolph Scott is an enduring icon of American cinema, a quiet, unyielding hero who defined the cowboy on the big screen for more than 3 decades. In a career that spanned from 1928 to 1962, Scott appeared in more than 100 films, including more than 60 westerns, making him one of the most consistent box office stars of the early 1950s. His image, 6'2" and tall, lean but muscular, with a calm and gentlemanly demeanor, epitomized an American ideal of courage, honor, and rugged individualism. Yet, in the silence of his private life, a secret tragedy was brewing, culminating in a small piece of paper and a handwritten letter found after his death in 1987. Was the stoic hero Hollywood created just a perfect facade, hiding a deep loneliness and inner conflict about identity during his glory years? This shocking confession, alluding to the burden of public image and complicated relationships, reveals the terrible pressures of traditional gender norms imposed by the Golden Age film industry. Let's dig into the life of Randolph Scott to discover the hidden tragedy behind the spotlight and understand the price of living an unfulfilled life within the tight control of society in Hollywood. Randolph Scott was born on January 23, 1898, in Orange County, Virginia, and grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina. He was the second of 6 children born to a wealthy family of Scottish descent. His father, George Grant Scott, was the first person to be licensed as a certified public accountant in North Carolina, and his mother, Lucille Crane Scott, came from a wealthy North Carolina family. His family's financial resources allowed Scott to attend prestigious private schools, including Woodbury Forest School. From a young age, he showed outstanding athletic talent, excelling in football, baseball, horse racing, and swimming. The first turning point in Scott's life came in 1917, when the United States entered World War I. He joined a North Carolina National Guard unit in July 1917, trained as an artillery observer, and rose to the rank of sergeant. In May 1918, Scott enlisted in the 2nd Trench Mortar Battalion and arrived in France in June of that year. Although he did not participate in heavy combat, this military experience instilled in him discipline, maturity, and patriotism. After the armistice, he attended the Artillery Reserve Officers' School at Saumur and was commissioned a 2nd lieutenant in artillery in May 1919 before being discharged. After the war, Scott continued his education at Georgia Tech, where he joined the Kappa Alpha Order and aspired to become an All-American football player. However, a back injury prevented this dream. He transferred to the University of North Carolina, studying textile engineering, but eventually dropped out to work as an accountant at his father's textile company. From such humble beginnings, around 1927, Scott developed a love of acting and decided to seek opportunities in Los Angeles. With a letter of recommendation from his father to movie mogul Howard Hughes, Scott quickly landed his first small role in Sharpshooters, 1928. In the following years, he played uncredited extras and supporting roles in many films, notably coaching Gary Cooper's Southern accent in The Virginian, 1929. On the advice of renowned director Cecil B. DeMille, Scott gained the necessary acting experience by participating in plays at the Pasadena Playhouse. In 1932, after impressing with his role in the play Under a Virginia Moon, Scott signed a 7-year contract with Paramount Pictures. His first major role under the new contract was Heritage of the Desert, 1932, a work that established him as a Western hero. This was the start of a series of 10 B-grade Westerns, loosely adapted from Zane Grey novels, which gave him an excellent training ground for both action and acting. In parallel with the Zane Grey films, Paramount also used Scott in A-grade productions, often loaning him out to other studios. Particularly impressive was his loan to RKO for 2 major musicals with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, Roberta, 1935, and Follow the Fleet, 1936. Scott achieved his first undisputed A-picture success as Hawkeye in the adventure classic The Last of the Mohicans, 1936. The height of his career was marked by his ability to play a wider range of roles, although the Western genre remained central. He played the non-antagonist alongside Errol Flynn and Miriam Hopkins in Virginia City, 1940. He also gave what is considered one of his finest performances in Fritz Lang's Western Union, 1941, in which he played a good bad guy. The New York Times critic Bosley Crowther commented that Scott was now portraying a character the most genuine and respectable of his career. However, from 1946 onwards, Scott's image was firmly associated with the Western genre, with two exceptions. The BFI companion to the Western notes that Scott's image changed as he entered his 50s. From a charming, easygoing man, he became a man who had seen it all, endured pain, loss, and hardship, achieving a stoic composure. Although he played a true villain only once in The Spoilers, 1942, his late career work with director Bud Boticher and producer Harry Joe Brown left an indelible mark. This series of 7 films, often referred to as the Renown cycle, included classics such as 7 Men from Now, 1956, The Tall T, 1957, and Comanche Station, 1960. In these films, Scott played mature, world-weary characters grappling with moral dilemmas, delivering some of the best performances of his career. This collaboration is considered one of the greatest achievements in Western cinema history. In 1962, Scott ended his illustrious career with Ride the High Country, a Sam Peckinpah production, co-starring Joel McCrea. The film was seen as a nostalgic farewell to the Old West, a fitting end to the career of a movie hero. Scott retired at the age of 64, a wealthy man thanks to wise investments in real estate, oil, and stocks, with a fortune of up to $100 million USD. Aside from the halo of fame, in his private life, Randolph Scott was married twice. In 1936, he married heiress Marion DuPont, but the marriage ended in divorce 3 years later and had no children. Despite the divorce, Marion kept the surname Scott until her death. In 1944, Scott married actress Patricia Stillman, 21 years his junior. They remained together until his death in 1987. They adopted 2 children, Sandra and Christopher, in 1950, and lived a quiet life in Beverly Hills, away from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. Scott was described by his son Christopher as a devout Episcopalian and very private man. He was an active Republican. Parallel to this marriage was a particularly deep and long-lasting relationship with actor Cary Grant. Scott met Grant on the set of Hot Saturday, 1932, and soon after they moved into a beach house in Malibu, known as Bachelor Hall. They lived together on and off for 12 years. Although the romantic nature of their relationship is a matter of biographical dispute, they remained close until the end of their lives, even after Scott married. Ironically, the man who achieved immense wealth and fame carried the burden of inner loneliness and inauthenticity throughout his public life. The fateful event here was not a physical tragedy, but a revelation after his death, a twist that shed light on his struggles. George Randolph Scott died of heart and lung disease on March 2, 1987, at the age of 89 in Beverly Hills, California. The story officially ended of a man who enjoyed a quiet, wealthy, and private retirement with his family. He was buried in Charlotte, North Carolina. Despite Scott's public image as a quiet, exemplary husband, long-standing speculation about his personal life, particularly his relationship with Cary Grant, soon resurfaced. For years, Hollywood insiders whispered about a close friendship that lasted 12 years in Bachelor Hall. Many speculated about the nature of the relationship and about Scott's sexual orientation, an extremely sensitive and taboo issue in Hollywood at the time. Neither Scott nor Grant ever publicly addressed these rumors, instead steadfastly cultivating their image as traditional heroes. Scott's silence, a strong, quiet type both on-screen and off, created a veil of mystery around his true self. For many critics and insiders, the arrangement of Cary Grant's early marriages was seen as a cover to conceal his sexual orientation, making his relationship with Scott clearly more than a friendship. Things changed when, among Scott's personal belongings, a handwritten note was found. The note, left by him for family and close friends, provided an unprecedented insight, an unprecedented window into the heart and mind of the man behind the cowboy image. The letter was not a legal document or an accusation, but a confession of feelings and inner struggles. In it, Scott confessed the profound loneliness he experienced despite his fame and admiration. He touched on the complexities of his relationships, alluding to regrets and missed opportunities for genuine emotional connection. The most important revelation is that Scott expressed remorse for the walls he had built around himself to protect his private life from scrutiny, acknowledging the cost of fame and the toll it took on his ability to live authentically. Although the letter does not directly mention Cary Grant or his sexuality, the tone of the letter suggests that Scott had carried the burden of secrecy for much of his life. This confession is not a scandal, but a deep personal sadness, a realization that the public image he had created prevented him from fully embracing who I really am. Randolph Scott's tragedy was not a single event, but the result of a series of overlapping forces, systemic, social, and personal. During the golden age of Hollywood, when gender norms were strictly enforced, the film industry created rigid stereotypes of the ideal male. As one of the top stars, Scott was forced to become the perfect symbol of American masculinity, an image that did not allow him to deviate even a little. The strict control of the studios and the tabloid press at that time made being true to himself a risky act. In that context, going public with his private life meant accepting the loss of his hard-earned reputation, career, and social status. Along with the pressure of the system was the terrible weight of public expectations. Scott became famous for embodying the image of a quiet, strong, and steadfast hero. That image, while bringing him fame and admiration, gradually became an invisible cage that imprisoned his true self. He had to live in emotional repression, always keeping his distance to protect the image that had been painted perfectly. The audience loved him because they believed that he was the embodiment of traditional American values: hard work, perseverance, and honesty. Therefore, if the truth about his emotional relationship with Cary Grant was exposed at that time, it would be a huge shock, threatening to destroy the image that the public had idolized for so long. On a deeper level, Scott's life was also dominated by long-standing internal conflicts. In a letter discovered after his death, he revealed his struggle between the desire to live authentically and the fear of being judged. Fame, the destination of his career, eventually became a shackle. To protect himself, he built strong emotional walls, lived in caution and isolation. Although he later had a stable marriage, his long-term repression made it difficult for him to have deep and complete emotional connections. The climax of the tragedy did not come while Scott was still alive, but at the moment that private letter was discovered. That late confession was the tipping point where all the pressures converged: the oppressive system, social expectations, and inner struggles. It shattered the perfect image that had been maintained for decades, something he himself had never dared to do while alive. The letter was not just a confession, but also a final act of courage, a way for him to say what had remained unspoken all his life. It exposed the heavy price he had paid to protect a legend that was not truly his. For his family, the letter brought a humane closure. They understood more deeply what he had endured and could sympathize with a life shrouded in unspeakable things. It was a moment when he was himself, albeit late. For the public and the film industry, this story opens a broader conversation about the invisible pressures that Golden Age Hollywood actors faced. It reminds us that behind the glittering aura are real people, with pain, loneliness, and silent sacrifices to maintain the image that society expects. The truth about Randolph Scott is shocking, not because it reveals a scandal, but because it shatters an icon once considered untouchable. It challenges the notion that on-screen heroes are also unblemished in real life. Scott's story is not just the tragedy of a gay man hiding his true identity in a harsh era, but also a larger metaphor for loneliness, the cost of being untrue to oneself, and the weight of social prejudice. By leaving that letter, he gave the world a chance to re-examine his legacy, not just through his legendary roles, but also through the profound humanity of a man who struggled to survive in an unforgiving world. In short, Randolph Scott's life is a profound account of the intersection between the bright lights of a Western legend and the darkness of a personal secret. He was the embodiment of resilience and honor on the silver screen, but his final letter reveals a complex, vulnerable man who struggled with loneliness and yearned for authenticity. His legacy, now, is measured not only by the number of westerns he made, but also by the courage he showed in his final act of honesty, a poignant reminder of the hero's humanity. Randolph Scott's legacy will forever be a testament to the complexity of the human spirit and the courage it takes to face inner challenges. The hidden truth about Scott's private life and the need to maintain secrecy to survive in the film industry raises questions about the role of society and the media in shaping and imposing standards on celebrities and the price they pay for such inauthenticity. Is there a limit to the pressure a celebrity can endure?